There's one world record that I can guarantee that you've got no chance of achieving. In fact, I'm so confident that no one will ever beat this record that I'm prepared to put up £1,000 of my own money on it. And this is the man you've got to beat, the incredible 8 foot 11.1 inch Robert Pershing Wadlow, the tallest living person of all time. I'm Craig Glendy, Editor-in-Chief at Guinness World Records, and over the past 18 years I've probably measured more of the world's tallest people than anyone else on the planet. But I've never yet met anyone who comes close to the phenomenal height of the Alton giant Robert Wadlow. His stature was so unprecedented and so far beyond anyone else ever measured scientifically that I doubt we'll ever see his likes again. So here's why I'm confident that Wadlow's record will never be beaten, and why my £1,000 will be staying right here in my pocket. To begin with, we can write off at least half of the world's population. That's because there's never been a time in history when a woman has been the tallest ever human. In fact, there's only one woman who's ever held the record for tallest living human being, and that's Zheng Jinlian of China. Zheng was born in Hunan province in south-central China and reached a peak height of a rather exalted 8'1", or 246.3 centimetres. So this makes her the only woman to exceed 8 foot tall. Impressive for sure, but still 10 inches shy of Robert Wadlow's record. Even women who were supposedly taller, but never officially measured, came up short, like the circus performer giant Amazon Queen Marianne Ovide of Germany, who was promoted as being 8 foot 4 inches, as was Katja van Dijk of the Netherlands. Oh, and by the way, if you are going to lie about being 8'4", don't be photographed standing in a doorway or next to someone of average height. Oh, and don't think that wearing a fancy hat's going to help you measure up either. We can also discount everyone who's simply genetically tall. Some people are just blessed, or cursed, depending on your point of view, like the Zegwaard family of the Netherlands. Here, mum, dad and 3 siblings currently average 6 foot 7 inches, making them the tallest family in the world. And when you meet tall twins, it's usually because they share this genetic trait. Take the American sisters Claire and Anne Recht, for example. They both stretch to 6 foot 7 inches, or just over 2 meters tall. The tallest genetically tall person I've ever met and measured was Neil Fingleton, who for a while at least was the UK's tallest living man. Back in 2008, Neil, who played US college basketball, was an imposing 7 foot 7.5 inches, or 2 meters 32 centimeters. His grandfather was 6 foot 8, his sister was 6 foot 4, so, tall. You probably won't recognise Neil, but he played Mag Martondoveg, or Mag the Mighty, King of the Giants, in the TV show Game of Thrones, where he was scaled up using CGI to an even taller height of 12 feet. The reason for this, by the way, is interesting. If you've ever hung out with an extremely tall person, you'll notice that they just walk differently. Their biomechanics are just different. Using CGI to make an average height actor look tall just doesn't cut it. It's not authentic, hence the use of actual giants. And yes, if you're wondering, tall people are likely to make tall babies. The largest ever infant was born to Canada's Anna Swan and her husband Martin Van Buren Bates of Kentucky, both of whom towered upwards of 7 foot 11 inches. Their baby measured an unprecedented 28 inches from head to toe at birth. Ouch. The current tallest living married couple is the basketball player Sun Mingming and volleyball player Zhu Yan, both of China, although they haven't yet started a family. When he was active, Sun was the tallest basketball player in the world at 7 foot 9 inches, and Zhu is 6 foot 1 3/4, so between them they reach 13 foot 10 inches. If they do have children, the chances are high that the kids will be, well, high. But Sun Mingming's height didn't just come from his genes. He is pathologically tall, which means his extreme stature is a result of a medical condition. It was discovered in 2005 that Sun Mingming's extraordinary height was most likely caused by an overproduction of growth hormones. To understand the role of growth hormones, we need to go back to puberty.
The pituitary gland sets off the process of puberty by increasing the secretion of that hormone which controls the rate of growth of the body. Therefore, puberty is introduced by a rapid spurt of growth.
Meet Sultan Kosen of Turkey, currently the world's tallest living human being.
Hello. How are you?
For the average person, the growing pains of puberty come to an end when chemical signals are sent to our bones, telling them to stop growing. But in Sultan's case, something went wrong, and the growth hormones kept on surging. The result is that his bones kept on growing. To find the cause of Sultan's excessive growth, we need to dig around inside his skull. Within the brain, just in line with the ears and the middle of the forehead, lies a tiny organ called the pituitary gland. It's no bigger than a garden pea, but despite its minuscule size, it's the thing that makes most giants giant. This is the organ that regulates the production of growth hormone, and when it malfunctions, as it did with Sultan, it can release too much growth hormone. Sultan was just 10 years old when he experienced a sudden explosion in his growth. The reason? It was a tumour on his pituitary gland. Sadly, it wasn't properly diagnosed until he was in his 20s, and it wasn't until he reached the age of 28 that it was finally surgically removed. Only then did Sultan stop growing, at the incredible height of 8 foot 3 inches. But what then about Robert Wadlow? How did he reach the heady heights of 8 foot 11 inches, a whole 8 inches taller than Sultan? Well, in Robert's case, his pituitary gland was also compromised at an early age. Not from a tumour, but from a condition known as hypertrophy, or as the Greeks would have it, excessive nourishment, which just means it was big, just much bigger than expected. Robert was born in Alton, Illinois in 1918, and his astronomic growth began from the very start. By the age of just 6 years old, he was already 5 foot 7. I mean, that's my height at 6 years old. By the end of the following year, he was taller than his father, and he crossed the 8 foot mark at the age of 16. It was shortly after his 21st birthday, at the height of 8 foot 9 inches, that he was recognised without any doubt to be the tallest human to be ever scientifically measured. Robert's doctors diagnosed the pituitary gland as hypertrophic and the cause of all of his problems, but they advised the family to avoid any attempts at removing it surgically. The risk of death, they said, was simply too high. So Robert soldiered on and made the most of his unique condition, initially at least enjoying or coping with the adulation. He travelled thousands of miles each year, making personal appearances. He became a nationwide superstar, in fact. But he also came to the attention of doctors, a number of whom jostled to be the one to document this unrivaled medical mystery. Wadlow's family were reluctant to take part in too probing an investigation. Robert just wanted to get on with his life. But finally, they gave in to pressure put on them by Dr. Charles Humbird. As they feared, though, Dr. Humbird was a little too intrusive for their liking, and his paper, published in the prestigious Journal of the American Medical Association, seemed more like an attack on the poor Wadlow. The family felt that much of what was written was inappropriate and just wrong, particularly in reference to Robert's mental state and personality. The family even went as far as trying to sue Dr. Humbird for libel, but they ultimately failed in their lawsuit. In 1940, Robert became seriously ill. He would embark on long promotional tours for the Peters Shoe Company, and it was during one of these trips to Manistee in Michigan that Robert first noticed something wrong with his leg. For a while now, he'd been wearing a metal brace to support his ankle and leg whilst walking, but his lack of feeling in his extremities meant that Robert didn't notice the brace rubbing against his skin. It quickly became infected, and Robert was confined to a hotel, unwilling or unable to go to hospital. There, he was spread out on 2 beds pushed together, and a makeshift hospital was set up around him. Despite transfusions, Robert finally succumbed to the infection, and on the 15th of July 1940, at the age of just 22 years old, Robert died. It's tragic to think that a minor inconvenience like an infected ankle, something that can be treated quickly and easily today with just antibiotics, was 80 years ago a death sentence. But ultimately, this is precisely the reason why I think we'll never see the likes of Robert Wadlow again. Developments in medicine and surgery are now sufficiently advanced to nip these kinds of problems in the bud long before they become life-threatening. We can slow or halt excessive growth and deal with the complications of a giant life long before anyone reaches anywhere close to Wadlow's perilous 8'11" stature. Even the side effects of extremely rare chromosomal disorders, such as the one that plagued the record-breaking teenager Brendan Adams, can be mitigated once doctors know what they're dealing with. So if we discount women and those who are just genetically tall and those who have a pituitary gland or chromosomal disorder that can't be dealt with by medical science, then we're left with, no one. We're all becoming ever more connected globally, and the world continues to shrink every day. So the chances of a child, even in the most remote part of the planet, growing up with a pituitary issue that's more extreme than Robert Wadlow's, and yet not treated by doctors, is rare. In fact, so rare that I don't believe it can ever happen again. And that, my friends, is why my £1,000 is safe. I'm pleased to be holding on to my money, not particularly because I don't want to lose £1,000, who does, but because I'm genuinely relieved that no one will have to endure the challenges and the pains faced by Robert Wadlow, the gentleman giant who took it all in his very, very long stride.